The Oblivion star floated silently in the black sea of space, its vast hull reflecting the pale light of distant stars. It was the pride of the Virexian Empire, a warship built not just for battle but for dominance. Its presence alone made planets surrender. Inside, rows of alien officers worked in quiet precision. Holographic displays hovered in the air, showing star charts, fleet formations, and encrypted messages. But today, the screen at the center of the command chamber showed only one thing: an image of Earth. Commander Jackson Morrow stood tall near the display, his eyes fixed on the pale blue planet. He had seen hundreds of worlds in his career, some burning with fire, others covered in crystal plains. But Earth was different. It looked peaceful, too peaceful. Grand Overlord Krell entered the chamber, his heavy steps echoing against the metal floor. His long black robe trailed behind him like a shadow. The officers stood straighter at his presence. Krell didn't like weakness, and no one dared test his temper. Without greeting, Krell raised his voice. Earth lies before us, the oldest planet untouched by our rule. Centuries of silence, warnings from dead civilizations, and yet it remains unclaimed. He looked around. That ends now. Jackson kept his tone calm. Permission to speak, Overlord. Krell narrowed his eyes. Granted, we've reviewed records from 12 extinct species. They all mention Earth, not in conquest, not in retreat, but in fear. Some say it devours minds, others say no one ever returns. Krell smiled coldly. Fear is for the weak. We are Virexian. We do not cower before ghost stories. Those who fell before us lacked strength. We will not. Jackson didn't flinch. With respect, sir, no probe has returned. No ship, even our long-range scans, fail near its orbit. Krell turned to him, voice sharp. You question the Empire's will. Jackson met his eyes. No, sir. I question Earth's silence. We're trained to recognize traps. Krell stepped forward. Then prove it's not a trap. You will lead the recon mission. Take Oblivion Star into orbit. Scan the surface. Find an entry point. Once it is secure, we'll send the fleet. The command chamber was quiet. Jackson nodded. Understood. As the meeting ended, officers returned to their stations. The hum of engines grew louder as the warship adjusted course. Earth grew larger on the screen. Its blue oceans, its white clouds, its calm, empty continents. Jackson walked to the viewing window alone. For a moment he said nothing. Then he whispered to himself, why does it look so alive when it's supposed to be dead? Far below, Earth made no sound, no signal, no protest, only silence. The Oblivion Star moved steadily through space, closing in on Earth. Its engines hummed quietly, barely making a sound as it passed the shattered remains of old satellites and debris left from a forgotten age. Earth was now fully visible through the observation windows, a perfect blue orb, still and silent. No lights, no movement, no orbiting stations, nothing. Commander Jackson Morrow stood on the bridge, his arms crossed behind his back. He watched the planet grow larger with each passing minute. His instinct screamed at him. Something was wrong. Everything about Earth felt unnatural. A world like this should have been busy, filled with activity. But it wasn't. It was too quiet. Bring us to high orbit, Jackson ordered. Aye, Commander, replied Ensign Rowell, his voice tight with nerves. The crew worked with discipline, but the air on the bridge was tense. They had all heard the stories. Entire scout fleets had vanished without a trace. Transmissions went dark the moment ships entered orbit. Some records even suggested crews had turned on each other before contact was lost. Commander, said Lieutenant Serin, the ship's communications officer, we're picking up something. A faint signal, extremely old. It's fragmented, like it's bouncing through broken frequencies. Jackson turned to her. Play it. The room filled with a burst of static. Then a voice, distorted, weak, almost a whisper, came through. No escape. Do not land. It waits. Another burst of static. Then silence. Can you clean that up? Jackson asked. Serin shook her head. I'll try, but the signal's corrupted. It's been echoing for centuries. Jackson didn't answer. He stared at the planet. His thoughts were heavy. This message wasn't from any known empire. It wasn't a distress call. It was a warning. Launch recon drones, Jackson said. Within minutes, small black drones shot from the ship's underbelly, diving toward Earth's atmosphere. The crew watched their feeds on screens, live footage from high above the clouds. At first, the surface looked normal. Vast oceans, forests, mountains, cities overgrown with plant life. No signs of power or life, but no damage either. It was like everyone had vanished in a single moment. Telemetry stable, reported Ensign Rao. We're receiving clean data. Jackson narrowed his eyes. Hold the connection. Keep the drones at high altitude. Then the screens went black. All drones lost contact, Seren said quickly. All of them at once. No interference. No shutdown commands. Just gone. Jackson's jaw tightened. He turned to the science officer. What was the last thing they recorded? A few frames appeared. Trees moving without wind. Roads with no vehicles. Skyscrapers untouched for centuries, but not crumbling. A single bird flying in circles, never landing. The screen froze on the final image. A wide open field of green grass, with a single word etched into the soil. Leave. The crew stared. This could be psychological warfare, said Seren. An old system still running to scare off invaders. Then why does it still work? Jackson asked quietly. The room fell silent again. Hours passed. The ship completed 2 full orbits around Earth. No new signals, no changes, but the crew grew more nervous. Some officers claimed to hear whispers over the comms. Others said they felt watched, even though the sensors picked up no ships or satellites nearby. Jackson stood in the dim observation chamber that night. Alone, the stars above looked cold and distant. Earth hung just below them, quiet and blue. Krell's voice echoed in his mind. Prove it's not a trap. He didn't have to prove it. He already knew. Earth wasn't just silent, it was listening. The next day, the Oblivion Star began final preparations for descent. Commander Jackson Morrow stood in the operations bay, watching his recon team gear up. 12 highly trained officers, armed, armored, and ready for ground exploration, stood in formation, waiting for orders. Jackson walked past them slowly. He knew these men and women. He had trained with them, fought beside them, and seen what true danger looked like. But Earth was different. It wasn't hostile in the usual way. It didn't shoot back. It didn't scream. It simply waited. Your mission is to land just outside one of the old Earth cities, Jackson said, pointing to a map projected on the wall. City once called New York. We want environmental scans, infrastructure readings, and signs of life, past or present. Stay together. Keep comms open. If anything feels wrong, you return. The team nodded, masks of calm hiding quiet unease. An hour later, the dropship detached from the Oblivion Star and descended through Earth's thick cloud cover. Jackson watched the live feed from the bridge. The shuttle moved smoothly until it entered the lower atmosphere. That's when the static began. Comms interference rising, Lieutenant Seren reported. Still receiving signal, but it's patchy. Maintain connection, Jackson said. Eyes on the screen. The first images from the surface came through, towering buildings covered in moss and vines, streets cracked and silent, trees growing through concrete. The city was empty, but untouched by war. No craters, no ruins, just abandonment. We've landed, said the recon captain through the feed. His voice was flat, atmosphere breathable. Air still, it's too quiet. Proceed with caution, Jackson responded. The team began to move. Their cameras showed still cars rusting in place, shattered glass, faded signs. There were no bodies, no bones. It was as if humanity had simply vanished without struggle. One officer wiped dust off a wall. Beneath it, a child's drawing was still taped there, a stick-figure family under a bright sun. Suddenly, one of the cameras flickered. Signal dropped from Unit 3, Seren reported. Re-establish, Jackson ordered. I'm trying, she replied, her fingers flying across the controls. Another feed went black, then another. On the screen, the captain's voice came through again, this time shaky. We're seeing things, people, shadows, but sensors show nothing. Jackson leaned closer. Clarify. What kind of shadows? Humanoid shapes, standing still, watching every time we turn around. They're gone. Siren gasped. Sir, I think one of the team just said something. I'm rolling it back. She played the clip. A faint voice whispered, "It knows we're here." Then silence. "Pull them out now," Jackson ordered. "Bring them back." The captain's voice returned. "We're trying." One of ours wandered off. No one saw him leave. He just walked away. "Shut it down. Abort the mission. Get them back now." But the feed kept breaking up. Static filled the speakers. Then a scream, sharp and sudden. It cut off too fast. Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. The last camera showed a blur of movement, a flash of dark shapes, and then nothing. "All signals lost," Siren said, her voice shaking. Jackson clenched his fists. He had sent good people to that surface. Now they were gone, not killed, just erased. "I want full lockdown of the landing bay," he said. "Nothing goes back down, not without my command." He stormed from the bridge and went to the archive chamber. The ship's AI lit up as he approached. "Commander Morrow," it said. "How may I assist?" "Search ancient records," Jackson said. "Not from our empire. Alien records. Everything about Earth." The AI worked quickly. Dozens of documents, messages and fragments appeared, most centuries old, many in broken languages. He scanned them one by one. A common thread ran through all of them. Warnings. Do not land. Do not look. It waits. It listens. It learns. In one alien script, there was a clearer line, translated crudely. It copies thought. It mimics trust. It is not a planet. It is a trap. Jackson leaned back, breath caught in his throat. Earth wasn't abandoned. It was pretending. The calm, the silence, the emptiness. It was all a mask. He stared at the image of the planet again. Blue, beautiful, waiting. Commander Jackson Morrow stood in the dimly lit strategy room, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's systems. Before him floated the last clear images from the doomed recon team, still frames of the abandoned city, that child's drawing on a crumbling wall, and the wide green field where the word leave had been carved into the earth. Each image burned into his memory. The silence on the bridge had grown heavier since contact was lost. No one spoke unless ordered to. The crew moved like shadows, their eyes distant, their steps cautious. Something had shifted in the air. Not just fear, something deeper, something they couldn't name. Jackson called for a private session with Grand Overlord Krell, who had remained in his upper command suite since Earth came into view. The video link activated, showing the Overlord seated on his throne-like chair, staring coldly into the camera. "Commander Morrow," Krell said, his tone unreadable. "You look concerned." "I am, sir," Jackson said firmly. "The recon team has been lost. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just gone. And Earth remains silent." Krell leaned forward. "Then it's unguarded, unprotected. We strike now. With respect, I believe we are facing something that doesn't fight the way we expect. This planet, it hides, it waits, and it learns." Krell narrowed his eyes. "You speak like a frightened scout, not a soldier of the Empire." "I speak as a man who has seen death. What's happening here is not war. It's entrapment. Earth isn't dead. It's watching, and it is already inside our systems." Krell's voice rose. "Are you suggesting Earth has taken control of our ship?" "I'm suggesting we've already been touched by whatever is down there." The transmission cut off without warning. Moments later, Jackson received a direct order. "The full fleet will descend. Prepare invasion protocols." Jackson stared at the message. Rage boiled in his chest, not at the Overlord, but at the blindness of power. Krell wanted conquest, not answers. Earth wasn't a target, it was a weapon. Alarms sounded. Across the Oblivion Star, dropships began to load with soldiers. The fleet in orbit began descending, lining up for coordinated landing on Earth's surface. Jackson rushed to the central data core. He needed proof, something he could use to stop Krell, or at least save what was left of his crew. Inside the core chamber, he pulled ancient files from alien archives. One recording stood out, an audio transmission from an unknown species long extinct. The voice was broken, nearly shattered by static. It sees thought. It becomes memory. We came to study. It studied us instead. Our fleet turned against itself, and now we are part of it. As Jackson listened, the lights flickered. The ship shuddered slightly. At first he thought it was turbulence from the descending fleet. Then he heard it, whispers through the speaker system. No language, just breathy sounds like echoes of thoughts not spoken aloud. Back on the bridge, Lieutenant Serin turned to Jackson with pale eyes. "Sir, I heard my mother's voice in the comms. She's been dead 20 years. Jackson looked around. More officers stared off into space, silent, some blinking slowly as if waking from a dream. One officer began to speak to himself in an unknown tongue. He stepped back. It had already begun. Earth was not attacking them. It didn't have to. It was inside their minds. Jackson made his decision. He turned to his few trusted officers, Serin, Ensign Raoul and 2 security staff. "We're shutting down the transmission relay," he said. "If Earth is using it to infect our systems, we cut the connection. We stop the fleet from hearing anything more." "That's direct defiance of Krell," Raoul said quietly. Jackson looked him in the eye. "If we follow orders, we all vanish. I'd rather disobey and survive than obey and be erased." Together they moved quickly through the ship. Alarms blared. The fleet had begun its descent. Through the windows they saw dropships disappearing into the clouds like stones into still water. No smoke, no fire, just silence. Inside the transmission chamber, Jackson worked fast. Serin monitored for signals. Every few seconds, she picked up strange bursts of data, patterns that looked more like brainwaves than transmissions. Earth wasn't speaking. It was thinking, and the ship was listening. "Cutting the relay now," Jackson said. Suddenly the ship jolted. Lights surged. The image of Earth flashed onto every screen in the chamber. The view zoomed closer and closer, as if the planet itself was watching back. The crew froze. Their reflections blinked on the screen, then slowly changed. They were looking at themselves, but their faces were wrong. Off, like copies not quite finished. Jackson slammed the control pad. Sparks flew. The screens went dark. The ship groaned. The connection was severed. Outside, the descent halted. Dropships hovered in place. Some turned back. Others didn't respond at all. Jackson stepped back from the console, chest heaving. He didn't know how much damage had already been done, or how many ships were lost. But for now, they had broken the link. "We bought ourselves time," he said. "Now we need to run." Because Earth was no longer waiting, it was reaching. The Oblivion Star floated above Earth like a dying sentinel, wounded but still alive. Its systems flickered as it struggled to recover from the command relay shutdown. All around the ship, smaller vessels hovered in orbit, some still functioning, others drifting, their crews unresponsive. The invasion had stopped, but something far worse had begun. Commander Jackson Morrow stood on the bridge, his hands clenched on the railing. The crew around him looked exhausted, confused and shaken. Lieutenant Serin rubbed her temples, breathing slow and heavy. Ensign Raoul checked systems with trembling fingers. No one spoke of what they had seen on the screens. Their own faces, copied and twisted. Their own voices repeating thoughts they never spoke aloud. Jackson turned to the display showing fleet status. Of the 72 ships in orbit, 38 were dark. No signals, no heat signatures, no signs of life. They hadn't exploded or crashed. They had simply gone silent. "Open a channel to the fleet," Jackson said. Serin tried, but her hands froze mid-command. She looked at him, frightened. "Sir, there's a voice in the system again. Not loud, not clear, it's just there, beneath everything. Mute all audio feeds," he said quickly. "No one listens, no one hears it." He moved toward the auxiliary control bay. His plan was simple: escape. The Oblivion Star couldn't stay here. Earth wasn't a battlefield, it was a minefield, and it was spreading. But then the screen flashed red. Incoming transmission. Supreme Command Krell's face appeared. But something was wrong. The Grand Overlord's eyes were too still. His face held no expression. His mouth moved, but the voice was slow and disconnected. Fleet must descend. Earth accepts us. Shut it down, Jackson ordered. That's not him. Seren tried, but the system resisted. Krell's image stayed frozen on the screen, mouth twitching. We are home, it said. Ryle smashed the console, killing the feed. Sparks flew. The screen went black. Jackson turned to the crew. That's not Krell, not anymore. He's been taken, just like the rest. He led his small team toward the hangar bay. The corridors were empty and dim, emergency lights blinking along the walls. The ship's AI spoke once quietly, and in a voice they didn't recognize. Do not run. Stay. Join. Listen. They ignored it and moved faster. In the hangar, most of the shuttles were offline, power drained, guidance systems corrupted, but one small transport still responded, an older model manually operated, with no neural interface. That made it safe. Jackson motioned to the others. This is it. We get off this ship, and we don't come back. They climbed aboard, sealing the hatch behind them. Jackson took the pilot's seat. He had flown dozens of missions before, but this felt different, like flying out of the belly of something alive. As the shuttle lifted off the hangar floor, the Oblivion Star groaned again. Lights throughout the massive warship turned on by themselves, first dimly, then glowing bright. It was like the ship was waking up, possessed by something it could not contain. Jackson looked out the window. The ship, still floating near Earth, began to move. Slowly at first, then with purpose, but not away from Earth toward it. They're going back, Ryle whispered. Even after everything, they're still going. No, Jackson said softly. They're not going. They're being called. The shuttle broke free from orbit, engines pushing them into open space. Behind them, the Oblivion Star stayed still for a moment, then turned. It began its descent. No, Seren breathed. He's taking the whole ship down. Krell, or what had once been Krell, was still in command. And now Earth had him. The ship that once carried the pride of the Virexian Empire was now nothing more than a gift being returned to its master. From the cockpit, Jackson activated the emergency beacon, one last message before they disappeared into deep space. This is Commander Jackson Morrow, of the Oblivion Star. Do not approach Earth. Do not answer its silence. It listens, it waits, it consumes. If you hear this, stay away. He looked back at the blue world shrinking behind them. Clouds twisted unnaturally. The atmosphere shimmered like heat, but it was cold, dead cold. Earth had not fought the Empire. It had welcomed it, and now it owned it. The small shuttle drifted through deep space, far from Earth's orbit, carried only by emergency propulsion. Inside, the silence was heavy. The hum of the engines, the soft beep of life support systems, and the occasional whisper of static were the only sounds. Commander Jackson Morrow sat in the pilot's chair, staring out the viewing panel at the stars. Beside him, Lieutenant Seren monitored what was left of their data logs, trying to preserve recordings, images, and audio clips that hadn't been corrupted by Earth's influence. Ensign Ryle slept in the back, wrapped in a thermal blanket, his face pale and hollow. They were the last survivors of the Oblivion Star. No one spoke of the others, those taken by Earth. Some had vanished from the ship, others had changed, voices that weren't theirs, faces that almost looked right but didn't blink. Earth hadn't just pulled them in physically, it had twisted them mentally, spiritually. What returned from the surface, or what stood silent on the bridge, wasn't human, wasn't Virexian. It was something wearing a body, pretending to belong. Still no response from any other ships. Jackson asked quietly. Seren shook her head. None. The ones that turned back after we cut the relay. They're dark now. We think they made it, but they're not answering. Jackson nodded. They may not be able to. He looked down at the console. One final message sat there, ready to transmit. A last beacon, simple, direct, and recorded by his own voice. He tapped it once, then played it back. This is Commander Jackson Morrow. If you receive this, do not approach Earth. Do not send probes. Do not answer its silence. It is not a planet. It is a lure. It doesn't fight. It waits. It watches. It learns. And then it takes. He sent the message. A soft beep confirmed its broadcast. The signal now traveled through deep space on all known channels, looping endlessly, reaching for any ship or outpost willing to listen. It would take months, maybe years for others to hear it, but at least it was out there. Seren suddenly looked up from her screen. "Commander," she said, her voice low, "there's something strange on the long-range scanner." Jackson turned. "What is it?" She expanded the scan projection. At first it looked like a regular starfield, but in one corner of the map, a small dot blinked, moving, not drifting. A vessel, still far but not on a random course. "It's following us," she said, "but not closing in, just matching our speed." "Another shuttle?" Jackson asked. Seren checked. No signal, no identification, no lights, just there. Jackson stared at the blinking dot, shut down all transmissions. No signals, nothing. She obeyed. The beacon continued broadcasting, but only through deep space channels away from their location. Their ship went dark, invisible to anyone tracking normal comms. Hours passed. The dot did not move closer, but it also did not leave. They all sat in silence, unsure whether to sleep, speak, or simply wait. Then the dot vanished. Just like that. "Gone," Seren said, as if it was never there. Jackson sat back, tired beyond anything he had felt before. Maybe it was never real, or maybe it was just watching, Seren whispered. He looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, maybe another empire, another crew was planning a visit to Earth. Maybe they'd hear the warning in time, or maybe they wouldn't. Jackson reached over and powered down the navigation console. There was nowhere left to go, only to drift, and wait for someone, anyone, to answer the message. Behind them, far behind in the endless dark, Earth spun quietly. Its clouds moved in perfect patterns. Its oceans glittered in the light, a beautiful lie, a perfect mask, and it waited again.